everyone, and welcome back to the Marketer of the Day podcast. We have return guest Hayk Tadevosyan, who has a new book out. Now, Hayk is a proud father, husband, deacon, athlete, and entrepreneur, and he is passionate about serving his community and inspiring others to reach their goals. And his first book is out. It's called The Power of Mindset, which follows Hayk's amazing journey from growing up in a poor country of Armenia to becoming a shining example of achieving the American dream. And if you listen to Hayk today and you like what he has to say and you want to go back and listen to that old interview, that is at marketeroftheday.com/590. But now it's time to jump in and get to some brand new, bright and shiny fun stuff. So how are things today, Hayk?
Great. Now, is it morning on your side? Should I say good morning, Robert?
Yeah, morning works, but you know how people listen to stuff any time of day, so who knows if it'll be evening, middle of the night, noon, whatever, right?
Yeah, good morning. It's 10:30 here in Washington. No, things are great. Good weather. I've actually been pretty happy here how things are shaping up in Seattle, so things are great. How are you, Robert?
Super fantastic. Can't complain. Just speaking of mindset, just came back from an hour-and-a-half walk to clear the mind, get some ideas going, and reset. And I'm always making sure to not be on the phone, to stay physically fit, and kind of live some of those principles that you teach.
That's awesome. I appreciate it. That's physical, healthy well-being is one of the very, I think, crucial things that we don't take too much advantage of these days. And the busy lifestyle tends to take that away from us. So that's great that you're taking advantage of that hour-and-a-half walk. That's huge. Very few people do that. Congratulations.
Well, thank you. I feel special. And so last time we talked, you had your book was kind of about to come out. It was called Mind Control. And so I understand now it's completely ready and you're already sending out copies, right?
Yeah, we changed the title. What happened initially, once I was done with the manuscript, I had a peer of mine who published the book through a standard publisher, traditional publisher. I reached out to him and asked him to introduce me to the publishing company because I wanted to get it edited, get it ready for printing and delivering to people. I reached out to the publisher, harassed them a few times. Finally, got back to me. They looked at the manuscript and they're like, Hayk, we don't, we get like 10,000 submittals a year. We accept, I think, 50 to 100 books a year. There's no chance, but we'll take a look at it. So they looked at it, and I was actually very blessed. They got back to me in a few days. They're like, we like the book. We'll publish it for you. Once I saw the contract and what it looked like, I honestly backed out because I talked to a few of my mentors, and a lot of my mentors always talk about freedom. And one of those things, like even in the business world, we're controlled by commissioner's office. We're controlled by regulations and states and rules. People think there's a lot of freedom in business. There is, but it's not that much as what people make it seem. And I was thinking about this. So if I'm going to publish a book out there, should I take what's the shiny coin? It looks great. They're going to get me on these interviews, on news stations and all this other stuff, but they have so much control over the book. If I want to go speak at a college about some of the lessons in my book, I had to get their permission and those kind of things. So I didn't like it. I backed away. I found a self-publishing company. It was a lot slower process. That's why it took about 3 years, but it was a lot of editing back and forth. English is my third language. So as you can imagine, I can't write that well. So a lot of times my editors, I had 3 different editors working on my book that were saying, what do you mean by this? And I was probably saying it a little bit in Russian, a little bit in Armenian, whatever's going on in my head. So long story short, we went there, and then my final Chicago style editing service, there's a lady I was working with, Amy. She's a very gifted writer herself. She's like, we should change the title. I said, what do you mean? She goes, well, let me ask you this question. Did you come up with the title at the beginning of the book or at the end of the book? I'm like, I came up with the title at the beginning of the book. She goes, that's a mistake a lot of authors make. He goes, you shouldn't have a title. Write, have somebody else read it, have a couple of options, and see what they think. She goes, I think your title should be the following 4. She gave me a bunch of suggestions. I ran it by thousands of people. I posted this on social media. I had a bunch of people giving me feedback. And The Power of Mindset was the title we went with. And we just published on Amazon last week. And it's been a very good journey. I've been getting a lot of screenshots and tags on social media, people getting the book. And it's been good. So I'm having some kind of an issue with Amazon. The delivery is really slow. But we're working to try to fix that right now so they can ship within 2 days.
All right. So there's always some sort of headaches, right? There's always some sort of snag, but that's great. And I've experienced something similar myself of like when you think it'll be that first title, and then as you write it throughout the process, it takes on a life of its own. And at some point in there, there's some kind of theme or some kind of, keyword or concept that ends up being what it what it should have been, but you wouldn't have arrived at that unless you went through the whole process of writing, of creating the thing. And so I remember last time we talked about like those 4 F's, like the family, fitness, and finances, and friendship. So is this new book, is this like similar to the old one, or is there just like all new concepts, or like what's the new stuff about the Power Mindset book?
The book is exactly the same. We changed the title. I talked to a few of my friends who have PhDs, a couple of doctors of my peers, and I asked them this question. I said, I know to get your, you have to defend a dissertation. They pretty much have to write a book, and they have to have a thesis and have to defend it before they get their the degree, right? And I asked them this one thing, because every time I edited, I felt like there was, I was developing myself. I was reading other books. I was listening to podcasts and audiobooks, and I was getting more advanced information on the subject. So I kept on re-editing and changing. And I almost felt like the more I wrote, the more my understanding of my thesis changed and what I believed mindset meant, what I believed success meant, what I believed, entrepreneurship meant. And I asked them this question, like, do you feel like the more you edit, the more you change your content? They're like, yes. There's a certain point you stop editing, but there's a reason why you actually write to get a degree. Because when you put things on paper and people are going to read it, they're going to criticize you. And like it or not, social acceptance is a big part of the human nature, right? You start becoming very analytical of your own content. So unless you 100% believe it, you will not release it out there. That's why you have to write. And he goes, it's normal to go back and disagree with yourself, because as you write, you get more advanced and more knowledgeable about your own subject. My specific content and my specific subject of the book was the 4 F's: family, fitness, finances, and friendship. And I'll talk a little bit more about why I came up with those 4 F's. But initially, I was talking about they come in specific order, and that's how I wrote the book initially. First, you got to take care of your finances, because finances give you freedom to work on your health, right? You have some time to take gym breaks and afford, supplements and healthy food. So you have to take finances first, health second. When you get into good health, now you can, attract the person you want to attract. You can get married and have kids. You can be healthy, and you can have healthy children. And fourth step, the 4th F, the friends, is now you can start slowly making some time to bring some of your friends back, because you've been so busy working and training with your family. As I wrote, I disagreed with my own self. My thesis changed. Now I say it's not about an order. It's that life success is about family, fitness, finance, and friendship, but you don't work on those things in any order. You work on the F that you're lacking the most first. If you're insecure about your weight, that should be the first thing you should address. If you feel like your marriage needs to get revamped, it needs to be corrected. If that's on your mind and you're losing sleep over it, fix that, right? If you feel like there's an issue of social acceptance, you don't have friends, or you kind of neglected your friends because of business, spend some time with your friends. Go get a beer, go get a coffee, right? So in my opinion, is you work on what you're essentially insecure at most first, and you address them accordingly. Once you get to a fair level on all 4, it's kind of like a 4-prong scale, you address the balance issue between. There is no, because I know there's a lot of people who have tons more money than me, tons more health, bigger families, a lot more friends. But there's a tipping point where you have too much of something, it comes at a cost. So I talk a lot about, you don't have to be a multi-millionaire to be successful, or have a large family, or have a lot of friends, or be a social butterfly. It's a balance between those 4s. One of my peers asked me, he goes, what about the 5th F? I'm like, what do you mean the 5th F? He goes, faith. I'm like, that's not a 5th F. I actually addressed that in the book. Some people talk about faith as being a different pillar in life. It's not. If you don't have faith, none of this even will work. Because do you have faith when you give one compliment to your spouse that that's going to better your relationship? Well, you better have faith, because it's not about the one compliment. It's you continuously doing something with the hope of good things coming out. People open up businesses with faith. Your business plan does not get addressed 100%. Trust me, I had a 40-some page business plan. 90% of the stuff didn't get addressed on it, and things changed. The book, I didn't have a perfect plan. I had faith something will come out of it, right? So everything is faith driven. There's no separate time of spending. You do it with faith. So that's kind of my answer to where the 4 F's and why there's no 5th F came from.
That's awesome. So it's like, yeah, that 5th F is just, it's part of the whole thing, right? It's not
the glue.
Just its own separate pillar. It's built in.
It's the glue. Yes, exactly.
There's so much cool stuff to unpack there, and that whole concept of like writing it down helps you make things concrete. And like, we all think that in our heads, when things are just in vague imaginary terms, we think we know what we want, or we think we know what we think or we believe. But then once you get it on paper as it's coming together, then it's like that thing might change. That's huge. And I think that as you were explaining that, you made me think about how people keep journals and people write things down just so that way they don't have to live life in those vague terms, right? They know what they want and they know what their fears are. They know what is holding them back. And it's just this weird thing. You think, well, I can picture words in my head. I can, come up with sentences, but until it's actually written down, it doesn't mean much, does it?
Well, speaking of journals, I did not write a book to begin with, Robert. I actually wanted to write a journal. It began as a journal because I was going through a phase in life about 3 years ago where I wanted to just reinvent a lot of different things. This is when I had my, first boy, a new father, right? We're having our second kid. I had gained a ton of weight. I needed to reinvent my business. So I committed, I'm going to run a marathon. We're going to have this second baby. I'm going to lose all this weight and I'm going to take my business to the next level. And that's when I really realized it's not how you do, how you do anything is how you do everything. It's not either or. You can do a lot at once. So I did start waking up early in the morning. I did start working on my fitness in the morning. I couldn't run more than 2 miles. My ankles would swell. I was 250 pounds. And at that time, I was thinking to myself, I had a lot of good ideas because I've done a lot of, majority of my walks and runs and time spent in the cars, audiobooks, podcasts. I love new knowledge, right? I'm always a student of the game. And that's one thing I felt like it's really played well on my side in business because I'm always learning. I'm always developing my people in my business. So as I started spending more time with myself and, you sometimes get tired of too many podcasts and too many books and you start doing other things. So I started keeping a journal and I couldn't run. So I was doing Stairmaster, I was doing elliptical, and I was doing incline treadmill walking. And I would spend 2 hours every morning doing that. And I started writing on my iPhone and kept on writing journals, ideas that I had before. Sometimes I'll wake up 3 in the morning with some random thought. I'm like, wow, I should write this down so I can talk to my team about it. Or wow, I should write this down. This is a valuable lesson that I remembered somewhere from the back of my mind, that something, a dream I had that woke up the thought, right? So I would always have these ideas. So I wanted to organize them for my own self. So I'm not up at 2 in the morning thinking about my ideas and thoughts and what I should share with people, what I should write down. So I started, keeping a journal. And all of a sudden I'm writing and things are becoming into, paragraphs and pages. And all of a sudden I'm like, wow, I feel like that's a good first section. Let me write a second section to what I'm writing about from the first section. Then I started writing second section. I'm like, wow, this sounds like a second chapter, third, fourth, fifth, sixth. And all of a sudden I'm losing all this weight. And I was able to start running 3, 4, 5, 6 miles at this time. So I couldn't really run and type anymore. So I began my running, I can call it my running career, right? Because I had a marathon coming up in 6 months. So I had to push myself to be able to do 10, 15, 20, 26 miles. As I started running more, I had less time to type on my phone. So I started incorporating more time to do it on the computer. So when I pasted all the words from my phone into the computer, it was over 200 pages. So I'm like, I think this is a book. So a journal, that's why when I say ready, shoot, aim, there was no perfect plan for it. It just happened. Same thing with the title. There was no perfect title at the beginning. It just happened, right? So this title is an outcome of all the different things I did in the book. And the book is an outcome of all the different things I did in my life. And I think there's a couple of deep lessons in there within the book. But at the same time, I feel like, going back to the 4 Fs, the 4 Fs is not necessarily the actual purpose of the book. There's a lot of different other factors in there as well. But again, I think when I send you that PDF, you probably skim through it. You probably more questions you want to ask me about it. So.
Oh shoot! I didn't even see the PDF. I should have. I should have noticed it and had some specific questions. But I guess we'll make do anyway. All right. In the same spirit of you're saying nothing's perfect and sometimes things just come together. I totally missed your the new PDF that you sent. But
everything happens for the better.
Right, and then it just means that we'll be more off the cuff there. But I like how it was just like you didn't start off saying, well, I'll write chapter 1 or page 1 of this book. You just wrote what needed to be written down, and then it came together. And it's like from like for me, like the best things that I come up with are things that started as little scraps of paper or little standard operating procedures or little step-by-step things. It was almost like it started with like my notes and then I had to organize it into something. And if I'd ever tried with that mindset of, well, let me start with the book, it never would have gone anywhere. But when it became like a matter of organizing the raw materials and making it into something that made sense, that it was a lot more fun to create. It happened faster and it probably came out better than if I just started off with, 199 pages to go, 198 pages to go. That would not be fun at all. So as far as like the this new book and the new things that you have going on, but right before we started talking, you said that there are all kinds of new changes in like your personal life and your business and all kinds of crazy things happen. And so can we jump into that? Can you catch us up on what are the new business happenings?
Yeah. So, as you notice, I'm sitting in my car. Since we last talked last year, I don't have a conference room anymore in my office. I gave it up to one of the team members in the office. So I spent a lot of my time working off my walking treadmill station, and I kind of like that change. Even though it's a little bit, there's no privacy from me. I can't really have those, one-on-one meetings, and I can't really be tucked away working on my own thing. But I've gotten to the point where it's my business. It's no longer my job. And what I mean by that is, I think for anybody who runs a business, it's not a good place to be when you're an employee of your business for too long. If the business runs around you, that's a problem. At this point, clients might get frustrated because you get too caught up doing too many different things. You're not getting back to people on time. Things are falling through the crack. That's why if you don't replicate yourself enough times in a business and keep your team accountable, the business will fall apart. So I'm happy to know that I don't have room space in my office, so I take conference calls and a lot of actually I get good acoustics in the car as well. So that's why I'm sitting in my car talking to you. And sometimes it even gets too noisy in the office. So that was a good change I made last couple of years in my business. There was a phase where I talked about working on the business versus working in the business. And in my opinion, it takes about 10,000 hours to figure that out. I have a formula, and I talk about this in my book often. It's the 5-year business plan formula. And what I mean by that is the very beginning of business, which is first 1 to 2 years, you are the business itself, right? You are the employee. You clean your own floors. You're doing everything possible to cut expenses and bring in profit. Because at this point, you don't really start with a good team. You develop a good team, right? By year 2, year 3, you really want to start hiring people and having them work with you. So they essentially are extension of you or your assistants, you can say. And you want to develop those people as soon as possible because a few years in the business, you've got enough clients to say you don't have time for everybody. So you have to have a team to help you manage the accounts and appointments and the conversations and pick up the phone call. By year 5, this is what I've noticed a lot of business owners get bitter with their company, their businesses, because they do not do a good job of replacing themselves. And they're still answering 20, 30, 40, 50 phone calls. They're still taking 20 appointments a week to the point where money is no longer the issue because they already have income coming in. But they want to enjoy the freedom, which they don't have because they did not focus on the most important part of the business, which is developing the right people. Because I don't care how hardworking and entrepreneur like-minded or smart you are, you cannot do what 4, 5, 6 talented people can do for you. You can't. Even though, yeah, I will admit the fact that you were probably the best employee you ever had when you're on your peak. That's why some business owners have this really big trust shifting issue where if you want things done right, do it yourself. To a certain extent, but when you're overloaded, you are not efficient whatsoever. That's why you should trust your team to mess up once in a while, to make mistakes. And to be able to trust them, to be able to handle the customers that you never trusted your team with, you have to get to that point by year 5. There's something special about year 5. If you don't replace yourself, I've seen so many businesses fail. There's the rule, the statistic, right? 80% of businesses don't make it past year 1. That's true. But what about the whole marathon? What happens year 3 and 5? Well, from what I heard in some statistics in the book, E-Myth talks about this as well. They said about half of those businesses don't make it past year 3, and half of those businesses don't make it past year 5. And I truly believe it's the replication process. I think the number one purpose, the number one driving factor of the business owner should be to develop good jobs in the community. So there's good jobs in your office. Because if you can focus on creating good jobs, the good team members, or I call them business partners, they will take care of your clients. Your clients will be happy. As a matter of fact, the other day I picked up a phone call. One of my clients was like, "Is everything okay, Hayk? Why are you picking up the call?" I'm like, "I just felt like picking up. I haven't seen your name in a while." I saw it on caller ID, picked up. He's like, "Yeah, when I call you, always, in meetings, you're busy." I'm like, "Well, that's true, but we have 6,000 accounts in my office. But isn't it good to know that you have my good team to deal with?" And he started going off how good my team was, how happy he was with the way they're handling everything, and I truly felt at that point that I had a business, not a job, right? So that's been one of those things where you should have your team outgrow the space in the office. You should have the team outgrow you, right? They should do things better than you eventually, and that's one thing I've been really pushing, and I'm at the point where I have that, but I'm also very insecure about maintaining it right now. And certain things are very crucial in the business to maintain those things. A lot of people think they figured it out one time, they let it go, and the team falls apart. No, it's weekly team meetings, monthly one-on-ones, team outings once a month, that kind of stuff. So I'm really working on that phase of business right now where I am not working specifically with clients as much. I'm working all with team.
Super cool. Yeah, a lot to think about there. And I like how you're aware of that. I mean, there's that one mindset it takes to get things started. And then as the years go by, there's kind of transitioning into that team until you almost completely have to let go. And I mean, you're so right. And that's so huge about just you. Like, I think a lot of people, they try to start off with that year 5 mindset. And then they wonder why, money's flying out the door and why stuff's not happening. And they're trying to have all the chaos up front. And it's like, man, up front, like you have to do so much yourself. And what I like also about the way that you laid that out is it's like there's that sense of urgency, right? Like some people might say, oh, we know when you get started with your business, do it all yourself. And then at some point get people on. And then next thing you know, there's no there's no drive to do things quickly, right? There's like scraping by, there's breaking even, there's paying the bills. And so what's the reason for that? What's the reason for like saying it's a 5-year plan and not just whenever you get to that next level?
Before I answer that, you actually hit a home run on one thing you brought up. Some people do get into it with the 5th-year mindset. They are the CEO on day one. One of the biggest mistakes I've seen. And I'm kind of glad I got into the business with very limited money. I actually dead broke. I didn't have an option but to be a top producer myself. Didn't have an option to hire multiple people. I could only afford 2 team members, right? So I've seen my peers that get into business with a lot of money at the very beginning, and they think it's okay to mess up because money will fix the issue. But what people don't realize is your time and your effort is worth so much more than you bringing $1 million partner or $1 million budget to spend on the business. Many cases, right? So just because you're looking out for your business, none of people you hire at the very beginning really believe in your culture, really like your culture, really like you. At the very beginning, it's all about money. Yeah, money attracts good team members, but the culture you built over time keeps them. And you don't have a culture the first year. So when you walk in with this CEO mindset year 1 and you're dumping a lot of money, thinking money will take care of the office and the culture, no. One thing you business owners are missing is you create the culture with time. Unless you have the culture, do not start dumping too much money in the business. You're just literally throwing money out the window. That's what I've seen many times with a lot of my peers and friends and people I've observed, I even listen about on the podcasts and interviews. But when it comes to your question about year 5, here's my experience. I'm in my year 9, and I've had a lot of friends of mine who got into business around the same time. And it's actually that 5-year rule applied to many. There's some kind of a burnout at 10,000 hours. Robert Kiyosaki talks about this analogy of 10,000 hours. I talked about the research about 10,000 hours. There's deliberate practice involved. Anything you do, if you just do for 10,000 hours, you're not going to get good at it. But if you deliberately do something for 10,000 hours, you get very good. And I think there's a sense of pride that comes with it. If you get to the point where you become a very, very high-level professional at what you do, and you expect certain level of respect from your customers and your team, and you're not getting it, it's almost like when a king comes down to a lower level, they relieve him of his position, and now he has to talk to people eye to eye, and he feels disrespected because he's used to talking to people on very, very high level. And the problem I think that happens with business owners, a lot of them start believing the thing that they're kings, right? They're on this high level. They don't have a team, so they're directly involved with the very, very low phone calls, the complaints, the meetings where clients are yelling at them and screaming at them. They're like, whoa, I don't like how you make me feel. I'm a professional. I've been doing this for 5 years. I've been doing this. I have my 10,000 hours. I have this figured out. Don't talk to me that way. And I've seen people become very bitter with their businesses because they feel like they're too good to be doing the low-level work that they were doing at year 1 because the 10,000 hours has gone by. And that's why there's an ego check involved with that, where you have to look in the mirror, realize you're never too good to talk to anybody. It doesn't matter in your business. They could be screaming at you at one point. Next day, you're talking to a CEO customer. It doesn't matter. But having the team right in between those two is crucial because a lot of times you became that professional because of these conversations. If you're not replicating yourself where you put team members in between them, when they're having those difficult conversations, now you're coaching them how to overcome that mentally, subconsciously, how to become stronger and better. You're literally missing the whole point of developing good people in your business by having too much ego, by not training properly, by thinking you're too good for these conversations. Once in a while, I ask my team to give me the difficult conversation they have, like a complaint. It gives me a reality check to realize I don't care how cool I am and how long I've been doing this, how charming, charismatic I might be. That client's pissed off, and I got to be on my A game to take care of it. And it doesn't matter if my name's on the door or not. It's a reality check that you got to get to the ground level once in a while. I think ego is a big killer of business owners once you become to the point where you feel like you have everything figured out.
Yeah, I agree. And I think we've all come across that in some form or another of letting that ego get the best of us and having that the lack of gratitude. And so as far as like your mindset of, always showing up and always making the time, like sometimes I'll be honest, like I struggle with that, right? Like you're on the second podcast appearance with me here. And I feel like that whole, I don't know, like that showing up mentality for me, it comes and goes. Like, I mean, I would love to just like consistently always be on other people's podcasts to get all this extra promotion, but it's like some days I feel motivated to do it, and even like weeks might pass where I don't. So as we're beginning to get into these last few minutes here, I mean, do you have any advice, or I mean, is that a problem that you can like
Yeah.
put a label on, as far as like sometimes not having that drive to show up and wanting to be able to just do that every day like you seem to?
I think it comes down to our primitive mind. We're taught to be a certain way because of thousands of years worth of evolution, right? There's a reason why my cover has black and then the power of mindset is written in gold. There's a point I'm trying to make across with the black and gold colors. In all adversity and all difficult times, there's an opportunity. Not in all of them, but unless you're opportunistic, you will miss out on one or two golden nuggets that life presents itself, whether if it's an interview or a conversation or interaction with a peer. Um, our mind is built to avoid danger, and our mind is built to sacrifice important over urgent. Because for thousands of years, we were in our villages, we were taking care of our kids. If you hear a noise in the bushes, you look that way. Why? Because that could have been a bear coming to kill you and your family. That's why when you hear a noise in the background, you automatically turn and look because we're primitive, right? It's old school. And for what worked well for us back then is working against us now, because that kept us safe. That kept us away from death. Now we sacrifice a lot of important things over urgent things again. Phone call comes in, text message comes in, somebody wants to talk to you, but other goals that come in, other people's agenda, but you got something important to do. You sacrifice important over urgent. I think it all comes down to really writing down what's important. Like to me, this podcast interview is very important. I've got a couple of urgent things. I have a few emails coming in. I mean, that is easy for me to get distracted, but important things goes on my calendar and happens no matter what. And I think the consistency, I'm not always positive and driven and motivated, Robert. I don't always feel like great, like I'm not positive 24/7. You can ask my team. Sometimes they feel like, hi, is everything okay? Like few hours in the office. I'm like, yeah, everything's fine. Just got a lot going on in my mind. But what really has helped me out is a consistent schedule. And what I mean by that is about 6 to 7 hours of sleep, 2 to 3 hours to myself in the morning. And what I mean by that is I wake up, I listen to podcasts, I listen to audiobooks, and I spend some time on a treadmill. I spend some time in the gym. I just recently started swimming, so I want to do triathlon. So that's been a new thing I revamped myself with. And I get into the office with a little bit fresh energy because I had few hours ahead of start on most people on positivity, on health and fitness. And when I'm not consistent with my morning wake ups, I can tell you I have a lot less energy because people thinking you spend energy, you have less energy. It's the other way around. When you spend it, you get more. So I've maintained a high level of energy because I give more at the beginning of the day. That has been a big kept secret. My brother just started doing it. His energy level has gone up as well, but it's draining the first month. After you do it about 30 times, that's when you realize you start getting more energy. So I think consistency comes from a consistent schedule and really blocking off what's important that needs to get done today and what's urgent and what's actually what I cannot sacrifice over important.
Awesome. So fight that reticular activation system, right? Fight the lizard brain and the red car syndrome, and start the day in a good way so that you give energy, so that you get energy. I mean, that's great. I love it. And I want to make sure that we plug the book and that people know all about it. So can you tell us about why people should not wait, why people should get the power of mindset right now, and how can we easily get that?
So it's on Amazon right now. If you just type the name, again, it's on for some reason 1 to 4 week delivery. I'm having issues with Amazon. It was on 2 days just a few days ago. I mean, waiting wise, I'm not here to push anybody make any decisions and say get it now because it's on sale. It's not. But out of everything I put together, I came up with this one idea, which was this book, right? And what I mean by one idea, there's like thousands of ideas in there. And I've always wanted to make sense out of all the different things I've read at all the different conferences I've been to, all the different sales training and approaches to good marriage and a good relationship. I wanted to have it all in one. And I think that one of the bigger motivators I had to release this book is there's a lot of different things out there, right? So this one book only talks about bettering your relationship. There's one book that talks about bettering a business. There's a book that talks about bettering, your health. I wanted to cram all of that in one. So if anybody's interested to really understand holistically what I think success is, which is not getting out there and grinding it off and becoming a millionaire or running ultra marathons, I think there's a very achievable balance, middle level set that's achievable by most people through discipline, gratitude, positivity. If that is an interest of people, they will find my book of good value. If somebody's looking for an answer, this is an absolute terrible book for them. There's no answer. The reason why school teaches you 2 plus 3 equals 4, they're teaching you a formula. So later when you have your numbers, 3 plus 7, 5 plus 6, you can do the math yourself. My goal with this book was to teach people how to fish, not to hand them anything. But there's a lot of stories that I've used from my past as well that talked about certain patterns, like hard work is one of them. If you don't put hard work towards anything you're passionate about, it is not going to happen. If it came easy, we will all be very happy and positive and good looking and you name it, right?
Well, great. Well, what I'm getting from this conversation is that, the chaos is important, right? Like you need to have that adversity. You need to have those problems that must be solved. But what I'm hearing a lot of from like your mindset here is that being organized is kind of the key to a lot of things, right? That like you say, well, if your business is bad and you bring in like, $1 million in funding or like all these employees, that's just going to create more problems. But then you're saying that recently in your business, you have these things like those regular team meetings, right? Those daily or those weekly meetings and those monthly outings, just kind of the recurring things and like the time blocked off in the morning. So sometimes we just need those few principles or that little bit of organization. And this sounds like a great resource, a great book for people to check out. So like Hayk said, go to Amazon and type in The Power of Mindset to get the book. Is there a website too or anything else you'd like to plug or just the book? And that's the one thing people should do.
The website is almost done. It's haykt.org, haykt.org. It's not fully complete yet, but it's there. It's got some summary of the book. It's got some blog posts I made that's during when I was writing the book, as I was pasting some of the information from the book into it. So there's a lot of sneak peek information on the website. It's not fully functional, again, just disclosure, but we're working to fix that with the self-publishing company I'm working with.
Fantastic. So that website is hayk.org and the book is The Power of Mindset. So get it on Amazon, get it on Kindle, read it or listen to it while you're on the treadmill. You're going to love it. You'll get a lot out of it. And we'll see you over there on Amazon for The Power of Mindset. And thanks, Hayk, for taking the time in your car and for telling us those things we need to know. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Robert. I really appreciate your time. And I'm very blessed that you're spending this time with me. Thank you.
Thank you.